Let's talk candid.
We back. What's good, friends? What's good, fam? What's good, all the homies
Hey.
out there? Welcome back to Hear Us Out, the music and media blueprint brought to you by myself, River, my girl Lottie, and we have a fire guest with us today, TT the artist. If you don't know, now you know. What's up, TT?
Hey, ladies, how are you? It's good to be here.
I love it. We're so happy to have you. So, for all the people out there tuning in, if this is your first time joining Hear Us Out, welcome. Thank you for joining us. This is season 2, where we're talking about building currency creatively. So, we're tapping in with all of our favorite multi-hyphenate creatives, entrepreneurs, artists, and we're just about to start having some currency conversations about how to really make stuff shake. So, we're so excited for y'all to meet the extraordinary TT the artist. So, TT, first things first, let us know, how do you identify creatively and professionally in the world of music and media?
I'm definitely a multi-hyphenate. I dibble and dabble in a lot of different mediums, so my work is very intersectional, and primarily I navigate in the spaces of film, music, and art and design, which for me, art and design also falls into fashion and things like that. So, yeah, I'm an interdisciplinary artist, and I feel like with a lot of my work, the medium reflects whatever message that I'm trying to give out to the world. So I just love to, work in different spaces and mediums, and that's really who I am. I'm made up of a lot of things.
That resonates a lot as someone who's also a multi hyphenate. But I have to ask, have you ever felt pressure to focus on one creative talent? Like you're so good at so many things and you've experienced success in so many things. So how do you navigate the expectations of being, the best or whatever you want to be within all these fields while also staying true to yourself?
I think with me, I have about now 20 years as a independent creative full time. And when I started, it was very much leaning heavy towards, hey, you need to find one thing, be really good at that, the jack of all trades, master of none conversation. But now you see, due to the climate of the entertainment industry, you're way more of a asset when you can deliver multiple things. Like I've had jobs where they wanted to hire a director who was also a camera person. So if I didn't have certain skills, I might lose out on a job in today's climate. People are trying to stretch their budgets more. So, entering this creative field, it's good to know that you can lean into other sources. Or even when there was the writer's strike in Hollywood, if you were a actor or working in the film and television industry, you kind of lost work. So I had to lean into my other things. Like music wasn't slowing down for me, art wasn't slowing down for me. So when there was a little gap in Hollywood, I just kind of like, okay, well, what kind of paintings can I sell, or what kind of merchandise can I make, or what kind of music can I release? And I've always kind of juggled and balanced. I think that's where it's key. It's not so much about just doing one thing, but when you are working on one thing, focusing on that one thing, and then kind of like finishing that task and going on to the other. So that's kind of how I balance it. Like I'm not in the studio recording when I'm working on set directing. I have to put my attention where it needs to be put and prioritize. So that's really how I navigate all of, juggling all those different things.
I love
You
that because it's
that
like
yeah.
multi hyphenate doesn't mean haphazard, right? Like you still got to
Hmm.
get the project or the task or what have you done to a
Right.
certain quality or degree. And I
Hmm.
love how you speak of just, and even now it's like we're, not to call it a recession because it hasn't officially been called that yet, but we're in a time where it's like if one line of work is looking slow, you can pivot into the other one. And that's a very powerful skill set to have.
No, for sure. And on top of that too, you talked about, you just mentioned the word balance, right? And like just kind of navigating these different things. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of those moments where balance in different creative roles maybe got to be a little complicated or challenging, and like how did you navigate that?
So I think it becomes a balancing act or a little bit challenging when I do pick up client work. And, I'm also an entrepreneur. So on one hand, I'm trying to grow and get my ideas supported and funded. But then on the other hand, I have to make sure I'm creating a sustainable income for myself. So it's like client here in one hand and then personal goals and endeavors in the other hand. And then I found a way where those client jobs can be, you know capital that I can fuel into my personal projects. So I think that's when it becomes challenging for me. Like sometimes it just gets tedious. Like I may want to work on my own project, but I have to also deliver with the same attention and quality for my client. And in exchange, that doing that job for that client also gives me a larger credit, which can make the pathway a little bit easier for when I am trying to get my next ideas supported. So it's really like a juggling act sometimes. And I would say that's how I navigate it is I just keep in mind the bigger picture. You have to keep the bigger picture in mind. Otherwise, you'll kind of get lost. And also just having people around you that can keep you grounded and balanced. I think sometimes we get a little caught up in just grind mode and all of that. But as I get older, I realize like it's super important to have both, have that balance of your personal life and making sure you have people around you that actually care about your well being, but also are pushing and motivating you and helping you understand that there's nothing that you can't achieve. And, you just got to learn and do the adult things like time management and not making excuses because we can really fall into the excuse lane at times. So that's how I juggle. I just try to see the bigger picture.
I love it. I love it. I love
Seriously.
it. Bigger picture always. Like, and I love that you talked about the separation too of like, okay, business, personal, both sides need to be tended to, but there has to be some type of a rhythm, flow, cadence, some type of like unity between how I'm navigating and flowing in and out of which one that I'm working on. So I think that that's super valuable, especially, you know, coming from us, all three of us on here, multi hyphenates, having our hands in a lot of bags and wearing a lot of hats and things like that. So let's actually get into some of these bags that you have your hands in. Okay, first of all, so let's just start with, because you mentioned a few things. Let's start with directing. So you deep in your director bag. Okay, we see it. Anybody follows TT on social media, you'll see it. Can you talk a little bit about how that started? Like, when did the director era, you feel me, start? If you're, if you even consider it an era, however, like, when did that start? And how did you know that's something that you wanted to kind of like tap into and pursue?
Well, a lot of people don't know I did attend art college. So I attended the Maryland Institute College of Art, where I graduated with a bachelor's in fine arts and a concentration in video production. But that was at a time where video was just becoming an accessible thing for consumers. Like DSLR cameras were kind of making their debut in like 2006, 2007. So we were working on like DV tapes and stuff like that, Final Cut 4, and like you had to like literally log and capture your footage. And so I would say it started, my interest peaked in college, but I felt like the program I was in was not really reflective of my interests. In terms of the media they showed us, it was always like a foreign film. And me as a person of color attending an art school, I just didn't see myself reflected in it. And I always wondered, like, well, why aren't they showing films by Black directors? And at the time, we had the Spike Lees, we had John Singleton. We had all these different people of color who were definitely prominent within our community of Black cinema, but that was never a thing at art school. And I thought it was such a shame because now we can see in today's society that it is become something that we are now tapped into more. But at that time, it wasn't any real reflection in that program I was in. So I kind of just like went more in the direction of general fine arts. And then after I graduated, I went to New York for a couple years to pursue an art career. And, then I started doing my music more seriously. So I went back to Baltimore City. And that's when I would say, when I started doing music, I always tell people music walked me into actual film directing because I had to direct my own music videos. And then I started directing music videos for local artists. And that's when, the directing stuff kicked in. And then I was like, I want to make a film. I had no film school experience, but I knew that there was something very special in Baltimore City called Baltimore Club Music. And that was like a culture of dance and music that was homegrown sound from Baltimore City. So I was like, why isn't nobody documenting this? And furthermore, why isn't nobody documenting this in HD? So I was one of the first people in Baltimore to really like be running around with an HD camera, capturing the culture, and then making my film, which was my debut film, Dark City Beneath the Beat, which debuted on Netflix a couple years ago. So,
A flex.
and that was
Sorry, can we just stop right there?
yeah.
Debuted on Netflix. Homegrown.
We love it.
Black woman from the
DIY.
city
I was,
of
yeah.
Baltimore, documenting the history
on.
that has inspired your career. Like, yes. Yes.
Yes, I always tell people my journey with directing was very DIY and grassroots. Like even the film itself was funded through grants, local grants. And then I met Issa Rae, and I met Issa Rae through music. I was doing music for her show Insecure, and then I met one of the showrunners, producers, Prentice Penny, and he was like, "Oh, you're trying to direct." So he saw my film trailer, and he was like, "There's a shadow program that Insecure does, and you should try it." So I did the shadowing program. That's when I met Denise Davis, who was also like a very prominent Black producer in Hollywood, and also one of Issa's partners at the time. And she showed the trailer to Issa, and then they were just like, "What do you need? What type of support do you need to get this across the finish line?" So that's now, fast forward, I'm managed under Issa's company, Color Creative, as a director. And so that has helped me to develop my directing skills even more. And that's just like, I love this story because it's really a testament to making something out of nothing. Because anybody that has been an artist or creative in Baltimore knows that there are no resources really there, or the resources are very limited. So you have to go to New York or LA or Atlanta or Miami to really like get out there. But I was happy that at the time I was living in Baltimore, a few grants did open up, and it took me a while to get those grants. I got denied and rejected maybe 3 times, and then I just kept going. I was like, we're gonna figure this out. And then once I broke through that glass ceiling, it was really cool because it had never been done. Like this was like the most biggest idea you could have. Like, oh, I'm gonna not only make a film, but I'm gonna get it to Netflix. Like with no real industry connections at the time, no understanding of how it even works from when you do something to, getting it to like such a big network. So I really had to learn that on my own. I didn't really have a mentor telling me this is the steps. Along the way, there are different people I had met who were put in position to be mentors in the grant programs, but a lot of them were kind of detouring a little bit. Like they were kind of, I feel, projecting some of their failures onto me as a new creative. Like I would get told, don't be sad if your film never makes it. Don't be like, it was just like, if you listen to people who talk like that, you will find yourself in the same positions that they are. I was told, because I edited my entire film, I was told, have you considered getting a second editor? And when I did think about it, I was like, I'm cool with a second editor as long as they're a person of color who understands the culture. And no one could give me any real referrals. So I just kept pushing forward, But fast forward, it did what needed to be done, and I will do it again. And I'm always working on the next thing. So I was just happy that this film opened a window to Baltimore City that a lot of people never knew. They never knew about the creative scene coming out of Baltimore or a positive story. They didn't know about like, we have markets, we have a beautiful museum, we have like the backdrops of Baltimore itself is Baltimore City. Is not just like drugs, violent trauma and all that. So it was like, my first time, and I learned a lot through that process. And moving forward, I've sharpened my skills. So I'm looking forward to the next things that I, venture out into.
TT, I cannot express enough how proud I am of you. because it's interesting, right? Because it's like even when you got past one hurdle, you were presented so many others, even through people who are supposed to support you and push you through. It's like it's so interesting, right? Because like you said, and this is obviously no tea, no shade to anyone who was supposed to be a mentor to you, but it's like when they themselves have not been able to see certain types of success because of the systemic issues that are in place that don't make it easy for people of color, especially Black people, especially Black women, to be able to push through. You really are on your own. You really do have to navigate it by yourself and just use your own self belief and tenacity to keep going and just keep figuring it out. And you did that. So I'm really proud.
Thank you.
I need
Thank
that to
you.
be stressed. Like
No,
Thank you.
one of the parts that I think is super dope about what you touched on, I had a similar experience. I also went to art school. I went to school in Boston, but I'm from Inglewood/Compton, California. So I understand that of like going to the art school, trying to figure it out, like, and being in a space where you feel like, you're there obviously because we're told that that's a resource, right? So you're there thinking you're at the major resource, you're going to get everything that you need. And that's, again, no shade, no tea to any major universities or anyone pursuing that route. But I had a similar experience of being a person of color in a space that is not built for people who look like me. And so now I have to create the opportunity. I can't wait for the opportunity because in those types of situations, if you wait, it won't come. Because if you don't advocate for it, you can't wait for somebody else to advocate for something that's not their experience type of thing. And so I really value you sharing about how, you were able to continue to just keep pushing forward. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to find the next grant. I'm going to find the next opportunity. If I can't find an editor, I'm going to continue to edit until the thing gets to where it needs to be. And then once it's where it needs to be, then we can make some stuff shake and keep going. I want to ask a question in that. So collaboration, right? You said you've had people tell you like, okay, you know what, maybe you need to find a second editor, and whether or not their intentions were in the right place or whether they were trying to undermine your talent, neither here nor there. How have you learned and developed this collaborative approach in all of your artistry? And what are some of the ways that you approach collaborating with other creatives across other disciplines, especially you giving us this context of like, I'm a self-taught director. You feel me? So like while you know what I'm saying, you're now navigating with other people and all of these other things. Like talk to us a little bit about how you've kind of welcomed the spirit of collaboration into your business.
Well, I always say like, once you enter this arena of entertainment, it's all collaborative. You're gonna need someone's assistance at some point. You can't do it on your own. And I'm a very like versatile person with my skills, but even I, at a certain point, have to pass on something to someone who could take it to where it needs to go. So, when I made my film, that was not a solo journey. When I make my music, it's not a solo journey. I think the only solo creative thing that I feel that I have that's really direct is when I'm painting. But even after I paint, if I want to share this work and publish this work or have an exhibition, then it's getting passed along to curators and people who are able to put me in different spaces to show this work. So it's a very collaborative process in any medium in entertainment and the creative arts field. And how I like to work now is, it was always important for me to work with people who have integrity. And along this journey, you do have a lot of, unfortunately, you do run into a lot of things where you have fallouts with people. I have a theory. I feel like a lot of fallouts occur either because someone wants to be in your position or wants what you have, can't be in that position, and it's just kind of like a thing where it's their own egos getting in their way. And I think early on you learn that as you go. I just don't like that you encounter these relational fallouts, but it's going to happen to everyone at some point. I also don't like when you are working so hard how you can get trolled online, or someone who don't even know your journey can make up a whole narrative that totally isn't true. And it could be a collaborator that you worked with a long time ago that's just upset that they were not advancing in their career, and then now they have to see you in your light. So it's like give and take with collaboration. But as you go through these experiences, you mature, and you also use your own discernment on what a person is. And now I feel like I'm at the place where it doesn't serve me to collaborate with people who are not pouring into me as much as I'm pouring into them. Um, and I just feel like that is a part of my new chapter. It's like what I've done, because even when I put my film out, there were people who didn't understand even my film's approach. You know, some people wanted to be featured in the film, but they hadn't realized how much outreach I had done that no one responded to. It wasn't until I made it to Netflix that people were, well, what about this and what about that? Oh, they wanted to talk about everything you didn't do except the fact that you just got a film onto Netflix. So that was a little disheartening for me as a director. But then I shifted focus from that and shifted focus on the fact that over 150 Baltimore creatives now were given a platform of their own to run with. And, you know, I poured my energy, my money into this piece and body of work. So some people are just not going to get the business side. And so when you become a leader or any type of voice, the moment you turn that microphone and that camera on, you are now subject to public critique, no matter what. So one thing about 2024 that is showing to be true is that people don't care what you say about them anymore. Like, who's a villain and who's a hero, you know? And it's all subject to people's experiences. Like, if you're out here minding your business, doing the work that compels you, doing the work that you're compelled to do, not hurting anyone, you know what I mean, then you're doing a good job. You know what I'm saying? So I think in the spirit of collaboration, I'm just always now more protective of who I bring on board, because I've been through so much, you know, and it's like sometimes I feel like I'm the last man standing from where I started, because people have shifted and moved, and I hope that everyone is successful. The whole point of all of this is to break generational curses for me. The whole point of it is to create more opportunities, also to be a bridge for my community. You know, I'm in Hollywood right now, but I'm always in Baltimore. I've shot several projects since I moved from LA in 2018 while I was still working on my film. But I go back to Baltimore all the time, and I work with talent through many ways. So I think collaboration is important, but also knowing how to discern who you should be working with and making sure that those people are pouring into you just as much as you're pouring into them. That's like what I've learned through the experience.
Okay. I just want to say that is such a word, because I think, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you hear that phrase, oh, it's lonely at the top. And people don't
Mm-hmm.
really talk about the factors that lead to that loneliness. Like, sometimes you want
Mm-hmm.
all the homies that you started with coming with you, but everybody can't come for different reasons, right? And it's like, it's not even necessarily that it's anybody's fault, but there's so many factors. And I think what you're saying about how people, and we've seen it, you know, there's several recent events that I could speak to of people who are on top, who are former collaborators or former this or former that, are just like, this person, this, that, and the third, da 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 da. You know, and it's like, it could be everybody's favorite. And then you have someone that's just like, oh, that's crazy. And I always think about, damn, like, I wonder how that feels to have started with that person 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever years ago. And then you make it to wherever you make it. And you're still looking to make it to the next step, right? To the upper echelon. And there's always going to be that negativity in your ear. And it's one thing when it comes just from the internet, which still sucks. But when it's like from former peers, damn, that's a different type of hurt. And that's hard to navigate. And that discernment, hopefully, is what prevents other iterations of that later on in your career.
Yeah, it definitely hurts, but you also start to like develop a wall against it. Like, you start to if
thick
after enough
skin, for
people
sure.
screw you over and you've screwed no one over, it's kind of like, all
Don't need
right,
it.
I don't need this. And it's
Right.
it's almost the ones that you've spent the most time with that is easier to cut off for me, because it's like, you know me. Like, I would never do that to you. I never expected you to behave that way. So it's all interesting. I'm sure people got stories about me, but I don't really care, because it's like, I know what I stand on and stand for, and if you check the track record, it all adds up and lines up. And at some point, something may have happened with that person because of their neglect or the way they move, and I decided to disassociate completely, you know. But that's also a part of the process of learning and growing and knowing what works for me and what doesn't work for me. And it's okay. Like, we're all not gonna be kumbaya and drinking tea together. Like, that's not how this works. And I think that's an assumption. An assumption is that we're all going to be like friends at the end of the day. But um like I said, if you are not hurting people and you're just minding your business and doing what you're trying to do for yourself, your family, and that's where I feel like my motivation comes from. Anything outside of that, if it's not positive or helping me grow as a person, then I don't necessarily need to dedicate any time and energy to it. And it's just really that black and white. Some people will get mad at you if you don't entertain them. It's kind of like, the more you ignore them, the crazier they're gonna get. But that path of least resistance, I'm heavy on that right now in 2024. And that's a working thing. It's a working thing, because like, I'll scream to the ceilings in private, but in public, it's like, I have to represent myself always.
So I love that. I'll scream to the ceilings in private still has me going. So one of the things that you're naturally talking about, which I think is super dope, or at least it's kind of where it's leading to, is number one, understanding, okay, yes, spirit of collaboration, but then also understanding, and you're talking through your trials and tribulations of building a team, and the double-edged sword that could come with that, which is, it's great, but then there's also times when, in, like we said, we've been talking about the business of this, right? It's one thing to be a creative and it's all, oh my god, woo woo rah rah, we're creating and we're doing all these fun things and we're so inspired and we're so motivated, but then there's the business side where it's, but at the same time, shit got to get done. So if you ain't moving on this train, baby, shit got to get done. It ain't personal, it's just business, because we still have to move the shit forward. And so I really love how you're organically kind of talking about, really, and really just kind of like letting people know at the same time, like, you can continue on your trial, your path, your marathon, however you see it, on your road to success, but there's going to be sacrifices that you have to make, and you have to be willing to separate your emotions from make it when it comes down to trying to make a sound decision, and also being able to just kind of, like you said, have that discernment and know, like, okay, wait a minute, sometimes something may be for me and sometimes some things may not be for me, and that's okay. We can keep moving forward and we can keep growing and we can keep going. So I really think that that's super valuable, because one of the things that we talk about a lot, and in the Here Is Out community, we have a lot of different multi-hyphenate artists specifically who are really trying to figure out and navigate this whole, I'm building my empire right now, I'm building it on my own, I'm meeting people along the way, how do I navigate this team building dynamic, right? Like, how do I navigate these collaborations, and like, how do I handle those moments where it's like, do I keep going with the same thing even though it feels like it may not be working, or do I just kind of have to have this uncomfortable conversation or do this thing where I can actually help my brand to grow and develop? And so I think this is super fire that it's kind of organically something that we're talking about right now, because it's definitely been a conversation that we've been kind of having throughout the Hear Us Out community in general. One of the things that I think is really dope that you touched on earlier in this conversation is how the strike, for example, when these situations that are completely, they're societal situations, for example, that happen and they're completely out of our control as creatives, we have to be able to figure out how to sustain ourselves. And you were like, look, TV film ain't working, so I'm gonna go over here to my art bag and I'm gonna get into this. And then if that ain't working, then I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna jump into this bag. Can you talk a little bit about how you how do you creatively, like, what's the creative flow of deciding what arena, which bag you're gonna be in? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I think when it comes to like where I choose to put the focus on, it really has to do with what is in front of me. I I literally working every day to be more present. So right now, I'd say with directing, to me, it's kind of slow because we're just coming out of the Hollywood strike. So a lot of the opportunities for directing, also even me being a new director, come in kind of like waves. Whereas if I was more of a popular name, I'd probably be getting a lot of calls on, oh, I probably can pick from the pick of the litter, like, oh, I would take that project, take that project. Um, so in this time where I'm not so busy directing, I'm actually self-learning and developing my screenwriting. So I have some scripts that I'm writing, because I do have opportunities to not only direct, but pitch myself as a writer and pitch my ideas as a script writer. And then those will lead to me directing my own films, which is what I want to do anyway, to be quite honest with you. And that was another thing I was going to touch on with collaboration. I feel like I don't enter any collaboration with anyone or have a team of people working with me and think that my dreams should be theirs. um all good things, they say all things good things come to an end, but I also think that all good things evolve. So if you have a team of people that are working with you diligently from the beginning, that person might develop their own skills and interests. And I've always been a person that supports that. Like, I support you starting your own brand. I don't see it as competition with mine. I support you wanting to make your own films. And that was one of the things I encouraged once I did my film. I was like, see, I did it. All of y'all can do it. So now we're seeing more people come out of Baltimore City producing and writing films, opening up studios, just doing more because they didn't see anyone do it. You know what I mean? And let alone see anyone that didn't go the traditional route and do it. So, um, going back to the original thought, which I kind of went on a tangent, focusing on directing right now because it's slow for me because I'm still climbing up the ladder. I decided, like, okay, well, let me shift my focus to my script writing. Let me shift my focus to creating pitch decks for unscripted show ideas that I have, because that market is wide open. So people are still taking pitches. And again, like, my goal is to see these ideas that I have that I feel like are new, fresh, cutting edge, and insert myself into the market in that way. And that journey sometimes takes a little longer because I'm not going the traditional route. Like, I'm really trying to push new ideas forward. And when you are doing new things, it's a higher risk. So a lot of people may not open their wallets right away until they've seen that you've had some sort of success track record on that. So, that's what I'll say right now is really a big focus for me is my music always. And even my growth in music, like, I've now grown from just calling myself a rapper. I do relate to being a dance music artist. That's where I found a lot of my success, even though I started with being a hip hop artist, but I'm really more defined by dance music now. Um, but even with my dance music, I am now hoping one day I can sound compose for films because I did the executive production on my film. So with me, it's not just the films, like taking my music to the next level where it's not just me as an artist, but I'm like right up there with like people like Pharrell who've done full soundtracks. Kendrick Lamar when he did Wakanda, like, I love this idea of being able to create the soundscape and curate that for larger films, and including my own. So that's really where my focus is right now. And then I have my own woman focused record label, which I started as an immediate response to the lack of representation in the mainstream music world. It's kind of like, we have a whole wave of women who have been pioneering movements, but after a certain age in the industry, people don't look at you as valuable as a woman, especially a woman of color. So, I started Club Queen Records in 2018 as I was doing my film simultaneously. As a direct response to that, I said, if they're not going to put me on a tour, I'll do my own tours. If they're not going to put me on their projects, I'll make my own projects. I'll make my own label. I'll, like, make my own table. that feels good for me, and I don't have to play by any of these industry rules. And I think that's where the industry is heading now. We're seeing a lot of collapsing and consolidating, with major labels now being bought out by other labels, and it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and more people are speaking out about the discrepancies of these contracts and agreements when it comes to music. So I just feel like I'm happy in my independent corner. The need for me now is just more partnerships, more support with brands, collaborations with bigger brands, really tapping into more of the corporate side of things, but still staying true to that DIY message that we always had. You know what I mean? Because I feel like that's where the seeds are planted. I feel like that's where the innovation starts. You know, when you are thinking outside the box and not running away from that because it may not be the most popular thing to do at the moment. So that's kind of where I stand on that, you know? That's where I'm at today.
Let's talk about this music bag though.
Mm-hmm.
So we have record label, right? What was the moment? And you talked about it a little bit just now of
Yeah.
like the inspo was it wasn't what I was seeking, what I was needing. Again, this was another moment of I had to create the opportunity for me type of thing for you. But can you actually like walk us through what was that moment where you were like, I'm starting my own label. I'm doing it. I'm about to do this. Like talk about that.
You know, it was a moment where I was like, I had just, I had did some records, and actually Jennifer Lopez sampled one of my records in like 2015. And it was kind of, I was at a point where I was, I still thought I was hot shit trying to be this like pop rap new rap bitch. Like, you know what I mean? I was in the game. Like I was like, what? I'm up here. I'm out here. I'm trying to make shit shake. I want to be on those big stages. Like I had that vision for myself, and I touched big stages. But I just felt like I never fit the status quo of what the industry necessarily felt that was marketable for a female rapper, even in my time. I always say that I probably should have been a rapper in the 90s. I feel like that would have been like the perfect time era for me. But we're here now. So for me, I just kind of felt like the music journey, starting a label was so important. It had a meaning to it. I looked up black owned record labels in 2018, and I went down a rabbit hole and found that very many labels that were owned by black people were either bought out by majors or they just kind of folded, they just went down. Then I did a deeper dive, was like, well, what about black women owned record labels? Then I was like, what about black women owned record labels that are women focused? And that's where I found my niche. And I was like, it was really hard to find anything in that space. And this is 2018. Now we're seeing it more. We're seeing queer labels. We're seeing women focused labels. We're seeing all types of nonprofits pop up. You got the Femme Forwards. You got She's the Music. All these different corporate companies that have real backing to them, being able to use their platforms to spread the message of like, we should be putting women in more positions. They are, a big part of music industry. So Club Queen Records was really my way of, my little mark in the big pool. I'm a little fish in the big pond, but I hope the work that I do is reflected in the long run. Like that's my legacy. I feel like Club Queen Records is my legacy. I really operate from an organic space. I make music when I want. I put music out when I want. We making music for television. The songs are getting synced, and it's all self-funded currently. Like we haven't, I apply to grants and stuff. I don't always get them, but I try my best always. But right now it's just like a self-funded thing. So we have all the freedom to drop, make our own videos. We invest in all of that. And, my hope is that I can at some point connect with larger companies that will help us, fiscally or fund us, or just understand the importance of this work and why it needs to happen, because it's also informing a whole new generation of young ladies that, hey, you don't just always have to be the rapper. You could be the producer. You could be the executive producer. You could be the videographer, the graphic designer. Like, it's a really, really really, really big focus for Chlöe Queen Records to continue to push women's voices to the forefront of the music industry and all the discussions happening around the music. Because I feel women are a really, really big part of why a lot of musical scenes have become successful or have become where they've grown to become. And that's just my tea. We need to be talking a little bit more about herstory in the musical landscape. You know what I mean? I don't understand why when you say who are the top 10 DJs in the world, there's not one woman reflected. That doesn't make sense to me in 2024. So that was like the mission statement for Chlöe Queen Records. It was just like, let's not no longer be accessories to men just because they're more popular or they may have the platform or backing. No, you're going to be featured on this track. I'm not the feature, you're the feature. Or we're both main artists. You know what I mean? Especially when you're coming in and you're contributing a pretty big percentage of whatever the magic that's happening in that creative space or that collaboration. So it's just standing on business and saying that we're not just accessories. We're not just like here to look cute and shake our ass. Because we could do that too. And that's really like, that's the premise. But one of the things on my Instagram with Chlöe Queen Records, it says our melanin is popping and so is our music. Because I just want people to know that, yes, we are woman focused, but with a special interest in supporting women of color as they navigate the music industry. That's like a really big part of the work I do.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. Period.
No,
Period.
because it's like
we do it all over here, baby. Let's go.
All the studies show when it comes to culture, Black women,
we
like music, film, fashion. Now, when you look at the campaigns and where the money's going, the math don't be mathing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting how so many of us Black women especially, feel compelled to create our own narratives, our own companies, our own this out of necessity. It's like, it might not even be like you was trying to be an entrepreneur or something, but it's just like,
you have
how long you gonna keep holding your hand out for nothing to come in it?
Right.
No, that's facts. That's big facts.
And also, I'm sorry, just to close that out, and also I don't like, even when you're applying to grants and looking for the funding, it's so unfair sometimes because some of the people who are creating these grants never had to apply for a grant. So I just feel like if people do a deeper dive, and the reason why a lot of times you're applying for these grants is so that you can get the understanding and the network to become a better business person. Because a lot of us, just to keep it real, are coming from spaces where we never had education around business. We never had education around financial literacy. We never had education around a lot of stuff that makes a business successful. So if I'm taking time out to write all this, and then you see my work, it's like, I'm really heavy on let the work speak for itself. Obviously, this is a person who's been doing this for 20 years. Give her the money and I'll show you what I do with it, because I've used budgets. Like, you're looking at a person who took their own budget and got a film to Netflix, and had to navigate Hollywood and find the right people who could help me get that film to Netflix. So I really, really understand what it takes. And that's what frustrates me sometimes with like this it's like the fluff. It's like, okay, we have these women-focused labs and programs, but then y'all still doing gatekeeping stuff. Like, y'all still taking people who really don't need it and using them as faces to help propel your message. Like, a person who's already popular, has experienced some really, really high level of success, probably already rich, and then it's like all these other people like myself, where we're still in that little pond swimming, just trying to catch a big fish or trying to catch a big break. And when I say big break, I'm not talking about fame. I'm just talking about an investor, a supporter, just freely, like without the stress of having to recoup all the time. Like, I'm gonna give you this money, but you gotta pay me back. Like, that just creates so much anxiety. Like, even when I work with artists, we don't do the whole recouping thing. It's like self-investment. It's like creative capital. You're coming in with your talents. I'm coming in with mine. I think it's worth enough for us to go in on a partnership and make money on the back end together. Like, you don't have to worry about this if you come here and we do this. You know what I mean? So, um,
It's
yeah,
one of
it
those
gets crazy.
things. It's one of those things, and we've talked about this actually. It's gonna come out in this season if it hasn't
Mm,
already when you're watching this episode. We've talked about the value and the power in bartering and the barter system, right? And the concept behind what the barter system is similar to what you're touching on right now, which is okay, look, I have something to contribute and you have something to contribute. So if we put our contributions together, what is the outcome? Is it impact? What is it? It can be financial, it can be whatever, but why is it that we can't just, okay, you're a corporation and you're saying you want to invest in innovators, in visionaries, in creatives who have their thumb on the pulse and are trying to shift the paradigm and actually talk about what real culture looks like, not the stereotypes that we see, right? Because that's cool too. People buy into that for sure. If you're an investor, why are you not taking the chance on the unknown, the newcomer, the up and coming, the underdog, if you will, whatever it is, like it would behoove you to do so because typically we're the ones that are probably gonna make the money flip. Number one. Number two, we're hungry, we're determined, we're go-getters. Just like you said, I've shown my whole portfolio, I've shown my resume, I've shown my work ethic because my portfolio and resume are indicative of that. What else is there that you're considering? I think that's one of the biggest things, and you talked about it too in the beginning of this, of like how we're watching not even just Holly entertainment as a whole, like kind of turn on its head. Like right now things are just getting destroyed and just stuff is happening, things are moving and things are shifting and conversations are starting to come up because it's starting to really 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 show our society that the nepotism and the favoritism and all of those things aren't actually helping us to propel and move the needle forward. And so I'm curious to know, like, and I guess this is probably more of an open-ended question too, but it's like listening to you talk, I'm like, dang, do you have ambitions of being, um, maybe like an investor? Or, I mean, you're already investing now with your label. You're investing your time, you're investing your skill set, you're investing your experience, your creativity, your resources, but like an actual venture type of investor, like what are your philanthropic? Because you just like everything you're talking about right now, I'm like, wow, philanthropy sounds like it's in
Cause you be
your
giving
in
back,
your
baby.
yeah,
It's
big
clearly
time,
the
big
mission.
time.
yeah, I feel like a big part of the work that I do is definitely reinvesting back into the people that I work with or that are in my community. So, for example, I recently officially launched, my own production studio, Artistland Studios, right? Even though I've been doing Artistland stuff for over 10 years as like just, like I said, you don't always know the way to run a business. So like getting your business registered apparently is like how you're supposed to do it, right? It's a real business now. So for me, it's like whatever productions we're doing with Artistland Studios or creative things, I'm able to now create jobs. Like that's how I feel like my reinvestment works. It's like whenever I get signed onto a project, I can pull through a network of people that I've worked with or put out a casting call or put out a now hiring, and I'm able to like create opportunities for individuals who may not otherwise even have access to those opportunities. The other thing that I do is I do a lot of mentorship, both paid and non-paid. So some of my mentorships I've done, starting out, it was more like I had the time, so I was able to like take on more people who needed guidance in their creative field. Now I'm also doing one-on-one sessions with people who are really, really interested in investing. Because here's the thing, you have to invest in yourself. Like I don't want people walking around thinking like you should not spend money on yourself. Everything that I've done, I've spent money on. Like I've had to spend money on traveling back and forth to LA when I was working on my film. I had to spend money when I got to get records mixed and mastered for when I'm putting music out. I have to spend money when I have to take my film and go get it color graded, go get a sound mix down on the actual audio. Like, so even having a one-on-one session with me, yourself and you're investing into yourself, but you're putting the money in a place where you know like this is somebody who has the expertise. I still to this day pay for master classes, skill shares, YouTube, all these different things that help me to become stronger and sharpen my skills, you know what I mean? In terms of like long-term goals, I really want to make movies. Like I'm making movies, but I really want to make huge theatrical movies. That's one of my bigger goals. Also, definitely like getting into like the book sector, you know, creating a few self-help books. That's something that's like nearly approaching. Of course, the label to me is one of my biggest investments. You know, we turned 6 this year and we're still here. You know what I mean? We moving how we moving, but we're still here because one of the things I like with my label is that I don't do the music industry politics. I don't believe in them. I don't. None of it makes sense. I don't like a lot of. I would say on music contracts, 90% of it is not needed. Not needed. Like you can do an agreement in 1 to 2 pages that lays out the understanding and the exchange, and they know what they're doing. It's like all this language in these contracts that a person doesn't understand. But I mean, I took time. I always think you should take time to learn the business side as well as the creative. So when I do see contracts, I'm able to decipher the language, but also you have AI tools too that help you now, like ChatGPT, where you can copy paste your contract and it'll tell you exactly what it means. And then a lot of artists don't even know how to get to an entertainment lawyer, so they make the game so hard for people to like understand that. That is why so many artists end up in disgruntled situations or feel helpless. But I think that a big part of my label is changing that story and that narrative, and I think we're just ahead. Like we've been ahead. Like we've been ahead. Our music has been ahead. You know, club music is one of the number one sounds right now. You got everybody from Lil Uzi Vert, Ice Spice, Nicki Minaj, Drake, Beyonce, Cardi B. Any big artist right now is rapping on Jersey, Baltimore club music. We are like, I'm one of the pioneers of that generation, the new generation of that sound, and now there's a new generation coming right after me. But through my film, which I feel like informed this a lot, and this is just like my hot take on it. The journalists ain't journalists. They ain't doing their jobs, because I feel like there should be more people like myself and other women who have really carried this sound out of those regions, being at the top of those charts, being at the top of these discussions. There's not one person like I feel that's covering it. And it's a shame because you know, we have what we now have is like this sound has gone global. Um, those artists are going to continue to get richer, while the people from those communities are just going to continue to fight for scraps, because that's what happens. Everybody's angry. Everybody's like, man, you know, everybody wants a little piece of the pie, as they should. So the equity and all that doesn't get back to the community, I think that's a problem. That's one of the things that I want to continue to shed light on. You know, that's part of my investment too, is just like shedding light and using my platform as a sounding board to make sure people understand this is where this is coming from, this is where it came from. It didn't just pop up out of nowhere. There are people like myself and several other people that to this day are working in Jersey, working in Baltimore, and now these sounds have just gone to the top charts of Billboard, but not one artist out of the community there is on the billboards, like charts. And that's just a lot of music politics involved, you know, like there's a lot of money exchanging and things and business that takes place to even get considered for the charts. So I just hope that, you know, more people take time to interview these artists from these regions. There's a lot more work to be done from here. And I'm just gonna always speak on it whenever I can get a little few seconds in an interview. I'm gonna always put that sound bite out there because I'm gonna tell people like we really foretold the future of this sound through my film that was on Netflix, and we're working on some new stuff too very very soon.
First of
Talk
all,
to us
talk that
about.
talk.
That's what I was about. Like, but first of all, like, say everything. Yeah, say everything. We love that. That's the whole point of hear us out. We hoping that when people watch this, they hear you out because you've made the most valid point. And we've been having that same conversation too about the onus and the responsibility as we are like living historians, right? And so it's like it's our job as creatives right now to make sure that we're helping to amplify but also secure the our footprint. You feel me? Protect our footprint. Don't let that get blown over with the sands of time. None of that. Like it's on us. It's on us as the creatives right now, us as the journalists, us as all of that. Like it's on us to be looking next to each other and making sure that we're amplifying each other. Again, going back to that unification and making sure that, as we continue to forge these partnerships and things like that, people really help to amplify that. So I really value you saying that. One of the things that you've kind of touched on throughout, like you just really been talking about like how you help to provide tools and resources. I want to know what are those like tools, resources, softwares, programs? Like, what are the things that help you get through the day to day of being TT the artist?
Well, definitely my Apple computer is my life. And I just got a new one, so I'm happy to crack that baby open. But there's so many things out here. Um, I am a information seeker when it comes to learning. I love to learn new things, and when I can get the time and space to just sit down and like dive into a new software, I do it. But of course, for me, like I said, I because I in a lot of different fields, I tap into software. I make sure I'm keeping up with the time. So right now AI is a big thing. So if you are a digital artist or you're a musician, there are a lot of tools now making it very easy to make not only your music but make your visuals. So, I'm heavy on Mid-Journey right now. I'm about to start diving into the apps that actually animate your AI art. There are a few of them like Runway, a new one called Sonar, I think it's called Sonar. Um, in terms of script writing, Final Draft 13, which is industry standard writing software. What's cool about it is that you can literally purchase this software and dive right into writing your script. It has a lot of templates. It has a lot of like ways to help you make your film outlines. From a musical side, I am currently getting ready to tap into working in Ableton. I've been working in Logic Pro X and Machine, but I just like to, a lot of people say Ableton is great for dance music, and I love making dance music, but getting into my producer bag even more, not just as a vocalist, but actually making beats and composing. So I'm always looking for tools that make it easier for me to create and faster because we are in a supply and demand industry. The person who moves the fastest is usually one that gets the job, but also have your standards and your boundaries because I'll find like I'm dealing with this now, like people always need things yesterday. It's like you come and you want services and you have to like give the creative some time, but it's also my job as a creative to set those boundaries up whenever my clients come in. So I'm just like getting to that space where I'm learning like to have that boundary set in place and my, this is what I will accept, this is what I don't. Um what else? In terms of like just learning, I'm signed up for Skillshare. Of course, University of YouTube. You cannot go wrong with that. That's like the number one spot. Um, and then I also like I book one-on-one sessions like when I really need to go deep and I see someone who is doing something that I want to do and they're offering services of consultations and stuff like that. I don't mind spending the money to talk to a professional who can give me clarity on what next steps I should be taking because in each milestone you meet, you have to like readjust your goals. My goals at 21 are not my goals at 35, 36, 37, 39. So talking to people who've actually been through what you want to go through, or you've seen done certain things, is always like the way to go.
People are the most
Fire.
underrated, but probably most valuable resource. I love that you mentioned that because it's just like
Mm-hmm.
you could read every book in the world, watch every tutorial, whatever, but talking to someone who is actually at the point that you're trying to get to in 1 to 10 years, cheat
Mm-hmm.
code. Cheat
Big time.
code.
Big time. And more often than not, people are willing to share. I think that's the other thing too. I don't know why or how, or maybe it's just a human thing that we assume people won't be. And there are some people who don't like to, but for the most part, people like you ask for help, you'd be surprised. Like some people who really be like, oh my God, I've been waiting for somebody to ask me to show them how to use this thing that I'm incredibly passionate about and don't get to talk to anybody about. So it's just in my head. So that is a big bar that you just dropped about the like, yeah, like if someone's offering consultations or saying that they're gonna do a workshop or whatever master class, whatever, that means they want to teach. So if you want to learn, that's your opportunity. Like that was a big bar. I would be remiss, we would be remiss, I know Lottie is also equally excited about this. Beyonce Renaissance.
Yeah,
What happened with you and
that was
Beyonce
a
and Renaissance? Can you
really
just
cool
let the Hear Us
thing.
Out community, can you let us
You know
know
what's
what
so
actually
crazy? Yeah. I mean, you know what's so crazy? I never know how people discover my music. But I always feel like I'm like 30 degrees of separation, like I'm right there. And I just got an email out of nowhere that was like, like a clearance email saying, hey, Beyonce is doing a Renaissance tour. They want to use one of your records as a part of her official, interludes. And it was a record that I had did. Actually, Mike Q, who was one of the DJs, he actually DJ'd at one of her concerts, but the legendary Mike Q, it was a remix that he did to one of my songs called Kitty Clap, and they mixed it with Beyonce's Kitty Cat. So I was just like, this is like perfect. This is like so perfect. For me, when I see stuff like that, being an independent artist who's never had a major record deal or anything like that, for me, it just kind of it's just like a little bit of reassurance that you're on the right track. You know, I'm not, I don't necessarily have to do what everybody else is doing, but my work is still doing what it needs to do. And I think success looks different for everybody in different ways. And I know I'm hard on myself sometimes. So I know a lot of other artists who may not feel like they are getting booked or getting all these opportunities might feel a little frustrated at times, but I never stopped. Like it's just become like a natural thing for me to create. So my intention on creating isn't to be on the, it's not like for attention. My intention on creating is this is what I do. This is my lifestyle. This is like how I feed my family. And it gets easier as you go on and release that unnecessary pressure of like caring what people want to say about you or think about you. Like it gets easier as you go. So I think I'm now at my easy point. It took me like 20 years to get here, but now it's like, look at what I did on my own type shit. Like this is what I did on my own. When I say on my own, I had people to help me. Like I've collaborated with people, but I never stopped, creating or producing. So that was really cool to me because it's like a notch on the belt, It's a notch on the belt. I like, okay, Beyonce is like as
Yeah.
big as we
I
get, honey.
mean, let me tell you something. No one can tell, not that anyone could have told you shit before this. Like, the
Oh yeah,
Beyonce certification is different. It's
absolutely.
different.
It's
Like,
different. Yeah,
yesterday's price is not today's price. Like, it's
definitely the
different.
price went up.
price
And
went
it's
up?
true. Nobody can. It's like you have to have that, confidence. I don't think I had it for a long time, but I could walk in the room and nobody know who I am. But I could have way more credentials. You know what I mean? I could still have the same credits that a person has that may be more famous than I am. So for me, the confidence is quiet. It always has been, but I am a little bit more set in my confidence now that I've gotten certain things, or I've seen things happen with my music just as an independent artist. So I just feel like it's a little different over here now.
And the thing that's so special about you too is that, and you've spoken to this, that you never had to conform. You never had to change. You didn't have to do the mainstream sound for the mainstream
Mm.
artist to find you and still want to use your
Hmm.
work. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like
Right.
that is special because like your own unique
Hmm.
taste and
Hmm.
creations, the biggest of names are like, yeah, I want that.
Yep, pretty much. And it's been cool. I've had it's been different artists. Like I've had, well, my first big placement was Jennifer Lopez when she sampled one of my records. Then Iggy Azalea sampled my records a couple years ago, and then Chloe Bailey sampled my record, which was special to me because the record she sampled was actually the first record that I really put energy behind, that I released on my label. It was like one of our first like releases. So we released that record in 2018 called Off the Chain, and then like 2021, I want to say, we got an email from Chloe's label, and they were trying to clear the license to use it for her song Have Mercy. So like hearing my vocals, Booty So Big, Lord Have Mercy, like be the focus of that record, and they kind of just pitched my vocal down. It's kind of like, whoa. I was watching the MTV Awards when that song was at its peak and Chloe was performing it. And I used to have this dream, like, if I performed at the MTV Awards, it would be so crazy. I would do this, I would do that. So we were watching it, and then I seen her perform, and there was this breakdown where the lyrics were on these LED screens, large as day, like just huge. And it was like, booty so big, Lord, have mercy. And I was like, oh, this is my performance. Like, it was like, I was like, felt like I was God or something, because it's like, these are my lyrics that I wrote and recorded, and they're being blasted on a huge LED screen. And I just felt so proud, and I was so happy that an artist as amazing as Chloe Bailey um, saw the greatness in that vocal. That was cool. Like that was, to me, is one of the biggest moments in my music career, because it really, again, just like when you making something out of nothing and then it gets to that level, it's a proud moment. Like you do got to be proud of yourself. You know what I mean? You can't always be just so comparing and waiting for what someone else has going on for it to happen to you. Like maybe that's just their path. And that's where I found myself. I was like, look at what we did.
That's fire. That is so dope. Like to even hear, yeah, and just you giving that example where you had that shift in perspective, like this is my like this is my performance too. Like those are my words. Fire, fire. I love that for you. I manifesting more of those moments for you because it's super dope. So as we come to a close on this lovely interview where you've dropped so many gems, what like nugget of advice would you give to an aspiring creative multi-hyphenate artist who's trying to forge a similar path? Like what would be your words of wisdom?
Well, I always tell people, first take a moment and think about what type of creative you want to be. Like think about your small picture and your big picture, because it takes a bunch of little pictures to make a big picture. When you watch a film, it's built out of small scenes, and then those small scenes create a sequence. Those sequences create a chapter, an act, and then all of that together creates a movie. So that's how I look at life. That's how I look at projects. It's like whatever that bigger thing you want to achieve, there's always steps to get there. But first, you got to really like look at yourself and think about what it is that you're trying to achieve. Like, and when I started, I didn't even understand that. I just dived headfirst in. I just dived headfirst in. We're in a time where things are a lot more informative, a lot easier. Like you go on TikTok and become an overnight success on TikTok, go viral. not even be a real quote unquote artist, just doing some fun stuff, and then people just find humor in it and it becomes a thing, and then now you have an outlet to something else bigger potentially if you want that. But I just would say, like, really just figuring out like what it is that you are envisioning for yourself, and that's how you can create the plan for that. You know what I mean? If you say, well, I do want to make a documentary, then you know now what type of tools you need to start to look for to work towards the big picture. Focus on the big picture, because along the way there will be things that will distract you from that and make you question what that big picture is. That big picture may also change, but as long as you have this like vision for yourself, I think it helps inform your steps along the way. So that's what I would say. And take it easy. Take it easy. Pace yourself. Pace yourself.
Period.
Pace yourself, because it is a long journey.
It's a marathon, not a it's a marathon, not a sprint for me.
Hello,
you know,
marathon. We tell y'all,
Yeah.
y'all know. Everybody watching right now, you already know. You've heard it. You've heard it from Lottie. You heard it from me, and now you heard it from TT. So, come on, pace yourself. It's meant for you. It's gonna be there. It's already there. It's done.
that part. That's a really big part. I feel
already done.
definitely like
It
I
is.
have to tell myself that every day. You know, I literally have to tell
Yeah.
myself that every day. What's meant for you will be for you, even when you're feeling like you're behind. It's like, how am I behind? It's
How?
like,
Yeah. Who am I behind? It's me.
exactly. It's
You
like,
can't be
what are
ahead
you? What's
or
your point of
behind
reference?
or left or
Yeah,
right. You
Like,
here.
yeah.
right.
And
As long
also,
as you in it, you in it.
yeah, and also just like removing the personal out of it. The emotion sometimes can get in the way, because you might hit the story I told about how I shadow directed for Insecure. I hit Prentice up several times via email, never got a response. Then months later I DM'd him. I was like, hey, just not sure if you got my emails, and he responded to my DM, and then within 24 hours I was brought on to shadow direct for Insecure. So just because people don't get back to you, they're very busy. There's thousands of people hitting them up. You don't know when they're gonna find the time and space to lock into you. So you just gotta keep doing what you're doing. Keep making your stuff look cool. You know what I'm saying? Because one thing I know about this industry is they're more prone to work with people who got something going on that they feel like they can benefit from. Unfortunately, that's just the way the industry works. But you are the industry. You are within your own self. You're your own industry. So you can create whatever ecosystem for yourself in the meantime while the big picture is developing. So that's what I would say to creatives that are, just starting out on this journey.
Bars.
Fire.
Bars.
Right?
You are, and I
Can't wait to
love
use
that,
that.
envisioning yourself as an industry, as a
Mhm.
business, and it's funny because I love the term industry as even opposed to business, because we are multiple businesses within
Yeah,
the bigger
exactly.
business, especially if you're multi-hyphenate. So I
Mhm.
love that.
Yeah, that's
You
And I
gonna
are
be a
the
appreciate that
fire
industry.
clip.
encouragement about
Exactly. I
following
cannot
up, because
wait for us to
let me
post
tell you
that clip.
something. There's some emails I'm waiting on my damn self.
Like, I'm like, let me think about a
Yeah.
different
I think
angle
about
real
this
quick.
too. I'm just
Okay.
like, I hate the fact that my mood is tied to whether I get a yes or whether I get a response. Like, that's
Yeah.
really, it's not
I mean,
it. But
I've literally had moments where I've cried from the no, because I couldn't figure. I
Yeah, for
knew
sure.
I
Oh, for
felt
sure.
this. I felt in my soul, I am the best person for this. I know this to be true. But it also is like a lesson to teach you how to still move with grace, have grace with yourself, and like just know that, like you said, what's for you is going to be for you. It might have been something bigger for you, or better, or more even for you, built for you, crafted for you. So like, get it out, cry if you have to, and then get your shit together, because like you got shit to do.
We got stuff to
gotta keep it
do.
pushing.
People gotta keep it pushing. Gotta keep it
The
going.
show must go
Mm-hmm.
on, as they say in show business.
There
Exactly.
you go. There you
Exactly. And
go.
that's why they
Ding,
say
ding,
it.
ding.
So, how can our community, how can me, how can Lottie, how can the Hear Us Out community, how can we be showing up for you, what you have going on? How can we be supporting and amplifying everything that you're doing?
I mean, for me, it's just about I got things happening, so people can check out my social media, of course, TT the artist. That's where I post mostly on my Instagram. I'm just starting the TikTok stuff, even though TikTok might be gone, we don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm locked in with TikTok too, and I'm very soon about to be transitioning to YouTube and stuff, and like doing my own master classes, because I want to give this information to people. I want to be able to, like, for people to have access to it. So I'm trying to film my own, get my digital assets up, make my own master classes. But my film is returning this year. So I'm actually independently releasing it. So that's a whole new process that I'm learning on, like, how to get my film out on these platforms, without necessarily having to sign it off to a network or a streaming, bigger streaming service. So Dark City Beneath the Beat will be coming back this year. I also have a short film on YouTube right now that people could check out called Ebony 8. It's a black sci-fi comedy musical short film. It's only like 6 minutes, so check it out, because
That's incredible.
that's one of my early projects in development. And then Club Queen Records, go stream the music. We have so many projects out. We have Club Queens Volume 1, Volume 2, TT the Artist on Spotify, Apple Music. You can find all that music up there. Stream, run those numbers up, honey, because we can use all the support in those areas.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Hear Us Out, the Music and Media Blueprint, brought to you by River and Lottie. If you love what you heard, hit that subscribe button. And of course, make sure to join our J.Lo community for exclusive updates and behind-the-scenes access. Now remember, friends, keep going, stay motivated, and stay inspired. You got this. We believe in you. See you next time.